What is going on, everybody? This is Snowman. Welcome to your very first editing tutorial, tips and tricks, how you can see my workflow of what I do for a video. As obviously you're well aware now, I'm making a website through Squarespace, and I thought, what have I not done yet? And this is something that I thought, hey, some people might have interest in this, so I thought I'd go ahead and make some tips and tricks so you can see how I make videos. The Spider-Man one would be a good first example here, just to kind of get us introduced into what I do. I wanted to focus today on like title cards and titles just in general, like words on the screen that introduce different ideas. So you can see here in my Spider-Man video, which obviously if you've seen the video, you see we have these title cards. And the different title cards have basically a color to them, a different color. I have a texture on the text, which I'll talk about, and then I have this like border that appears around the words, and it kind of fades, well, not fades in, it does like a square thing and appears. So let's talk about that first, and then afterward I'm going to show you, not that, this, is it this one? Where is it? Yeah, so this, where the text kind of like flickers in and out, like that, and it goes side to side. So we'll talk about that, because what it looks like when you're actually watching it is kind of like a flickering. Yeah, you can see there like a monitor that's like going in and out or something. So we'll talk about that. You're gonna hear my voiceover, of course, throughout, so that might be a little disruptive, but hopefully it won't be too bad. Let's start by talking about the title cards, because they're honestly pretty easy to do. But we'll go in, so you can see actually just by looking here on the left. I use Adobe Premiere, by the way. If you're interested in starting out on editing, I have a whole video called How to Make a Gaming YouTube Video. I'll try and link that in the description. I don't know if you'll be able to look at the description, but anyway, it's easy to find on my channel how to make a gaming YouTube video. And I go through basically like my overall process of editing a video. But I don't go like super in depth, where this will be kind of more in depth of specific things that I do for videos. So you can see here I have the different titles. Every title has to be a different thing. So let's look at the daily routine one, the one that I'm doing right now. So this is just the text, but you can see it does have the texture to it. It's kind of hard to notice, but over here on the side there's a thing that says texture. So let's look at that real quick. If I unclick the texture, you'll see that it just goes back to full white. It might be even kind of hard to tell a difference, but it is noticeable, kind of, sort of. And I have the sheen thing, so I can remove the sheen also. The sheen gave it that little, like, again, it might be hard for you to tell, but there's a little white line that kind of goes across it. It gives it a sheen. Now the texture is just a texture from file, so if I click on this, it'll bring up a thing, and you can see I kind of messed around with a few different textures. I started with this one, but oh shoot, my thing froze. Premiere does this sometimes, and it's super annoying, and it's going to close out on us, which is really unfortunate. But anyway, this darker one that you can see is the one that I'm using for that texture, and it, yeah, sorry. Premiere sucks, in case you, I know I'm like, I use Premiere, it's a great program. It sucks. Premiere's the worst, so don't use it. I don't recommend it. Essentially, without clicking on that again, you can pick anything from a file, and it can go to that text, and it shows on that text as a full texture. So even if I use like a different picture, not an actual like texture that I had there, if I use like a random picture, like a picture of my snowman icon or something, it would literally just put that on the text. You can put any texture on text, and it can do that. So let's go back to that here, this thing. So you can see that's the actual text, and to give it that texture is I add something from file, and it puts it on the text, and I added the sheen. So that's how it looks like that. And the reason I went with that texture is it's supposed to look like Spider-Man's webs, right? Like it's supposed to kind of look like the color and texture of his webs. Now I do these separately, so then I have a separate title that is the color, and I guess I didn't have to do that. I could have combined, realizing now, I could have combined it with the text, put it on the same title, but basically how I'm doing that, let me show you, is I'm just putting a square, see, and this one has the texture on it, so if I remove the texture and the sheen, it's just a color, it's just white, right? But if I make the color whatever color I want, in this case it's like a green, like a darker green, that's going to be an uglier gross looking green. But you know, okay, yeah, something give or take like this is the color, right? And then I make the opacity 50, so it's see-through. The other green is there, so it looks like really muddy, but that's basically all I did to make that. So underneath here is a 50% opacity square. That's all it is. And that's the color and everything. So it's kind of see-through. The text is on top of it. Just so you can see though, the text, the font I'm using is Bebas Nu. Bebas Nu, I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's the text I'm using. I use that very often. That's mainly the text that I use for titles. But I just typed that out, made it sized, and made it centered. There's a center buttons over here. Centered that, put in the color underneath it, and you can see that's the separate things here. So this is the color underneath everything. This is the text, and then the final piece is the border. So that's this right here. Again, it's also a box. All it is another box that I drew. I drew it kind of on the outside lines here. Like you can see there's like a border already that just helps you line everything up. So I just kind of lined it up the best I could with that. And then I make sure the fill is ghost. So fill type ghost, and then it basically makes it completely see-through. There's nothing you can see, so you just have the border. And the way you have the border is you do an outer stroke. So you can see without the outer stroke, it's completely invisible. It's ghost. There's nothing there. So you do outer stroke, and you can see it appears there. And I do it a 5 size. The default is 10, which is a little thicker, and that looks okay, but I prefer the 5 a little bit thinner, and I made it white, obviously. So that's just all the pieces together, and at the end it looks like this. But then there's a little bit of editing magic you gotta do as well. So if we go to the effects panel of the box, let me click on it, there we go. Okay, so I do something called a radial wipe. If you go to the effects thing here and type radial wipe, it's or even just radial, it's under transition. No, yes, transition, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's transition. That's the only thing there, so radial. Yeah, so radial wipe, and then you just drag it up here, and it's right there. And here's what I do. So I started, what a radial wipe is, just so you know, there's linear wipe and radial wipe. Linear wipe will move something left to right or right to left or up to down. You know, you pick the angle you want, and it just will appear something over time. Radial wipe does it in a circle. So what I did, I mean, essentially you can see it here, is it goes top to bottom like that. And the way I did that is, first of all, I say transition complete 100%, because that means it's nothing. It works kind of backwards sometimes. So 100% means nothing. The start angle is 180, which is the top. If it was 0, for example, it would start at the bottom. And you can see that it'll start at the bottom and go to the top, but I like it to start at the top, so 180 is the opposite. 90 could be the side, and 270 would be the other side. I say wipe both. So this is another thing, you can do it just one direction. Clockwise would make it go all the way around clockwise. That's hilarious because that's counterclockwise. So I don't know why everything's backward for some reason, but this would be clockwise, okay. Anyway, so but I do both because I like it to come from the top and just go both down, boop, 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 and make a square. And so whenever I want it to start happening, which that's up to you, obviously, I hit the keyframe right there, and I'm like, okay, this is where it'll start, and then I go until I want it to stop. So it's like, right about there, sure, you know, I mean, it was right here, give or take, and you have it line up on that, and the keyframe. But there's one more thing. Oh, and it goes to 0. So it's basically just fading from 100 to 0, boom to 0. But there's one extra piece, and I have it ease in and ease out. So this first one here is eased out. Like, it doesn't look like it is. It's not a thing that's checked. But what I did is I clicked ease out, and then here clicked ease in. And all that does is it makes it like slow down from the beginning to as fast, and then easing in is it slows down at the end to drop it in. And you can see that effect. I'll show you what it looks like if it's not in. Okay, so like if I did linear, if these are just completely linear, here's what it looks like. And it totally probably won't look any different, but it is different, I promise. Where it literally just has a, you know, there's no effect to it, but if you ease it out and then ease it in, it slows and then it slows down. And it's a subtle effect, but it does do a lot of cool things. I just realized the audio, because we exited out of the thing. Let me change that back real quick. Audio hardware. This is just so you know what happens. Output. You can change the output to go through your headphones. Yeah, so now you should hear it.
The first one being
good.
that you...
Okay. So, I normally have it go through my speakers, but if you want it through headphones, that's how you change it, just FYI. Anyway, so that's how I do my titles, and I did that for the other ones. The other one over here was Friendly Neighborhood, so that's this one right here, and then I added a blue texture, or a box underneath, but I used the same border. And in fact, something that's really, really useful about Premiere is you can literally copy and paste anything, and it'll keep the effects. So if I copy the border, and I'm like, I want it on top of this clip, I can just paste it, and boom, it'll have the border appear with the same effect and everything. So you can copy and paste everything with the same effect, which is nice, because that's essentially what I did for the border on all of these. Now, the final piece that I did to make it look a little bit better is I did a blur on the footage underneath the... oh, and I did an opacity. That's funny. Normally I do that, where I will make the footage a little bit darker, like I'll do 50% opacity, and I'll give it a blur of like 25. So this is Gaussian blur. That's normally the best blur you want. But if you type blur in the effects menu here, there's a few different ones. There's like, honestly, the only one I use is Gaussian blur. So I drag that one in, and you can see here I gave it 20 up to 25, and it just fades in quickly. It's just a quick whoop, 25. So now you can see the footage, like especially if I toggle these off, you can see the footage is blurry. Compared to that, like there it is. Well, that's a blurry shot. There it is normally, and there it is blurry, so it's like obviously blurry. And that just makes it so that your focus isn't on the footage, it's on the title. So that's just the extra little added effect. But again, like I said, sometimes I'll give an opacity, so I'll drop the opacity. So like if I go here and do, and this is an easy way to do it, these little things will go to the closest keyframe. So that's a really easy way. Like I want it to happen at the same time as these, is click the first keyframe, click opacity, click the second one, and just make it 50. And then it'll do it at the exact same pace, and it'll do it at the same time. So now it'll be darker, and that's just another way that you can make it pop more on the title, so you're not focused on the footage. I think I was going to do that, and I just forgot for some reason to not do that. So it just makes it darker, and it doesn't. Again, it's a subtle effect, but like if I deleted those, you can see that's what it looks like normally. So it's a little bit darker, just different things you can do. Okay, so that's the title cards. One other thing I did, not in this video, but in the Paper Mario video, my 5 best things of Paper Mario video, I had title cards like this. And one extra little pizzazz thing I did is I just gave it some little shake. So what I'm doing is just going 2 frames at a time and giving it a little bit of rotation, and then just going back to 0. So I did 2 frames, 3% rotation, 2 frames, -3 rotation, 2 frames, 0. And it just, what it looks like is it does this. It gives it a little tiny boop, boop. Like here, you can see it. It'll just go like boop, boop, just a little jiggle.
Walk through Spidey.
So, and that looks, 3% might even be too much. Like if I did 2%, that might look better for some reason compared to the other one. In the Paper Mario one, it looked good, but here 2% maybe, or whoops, not. That one needs to be -2. So negative goes this way, regular goes that way. So I think that was backward from my webcam, but you get what I'm saying.
Walk through Spidey's.
Yeah, so that's just a very, very subtle jiggle.
Walk through Spidey.
Just a little boop boop. And it didn't really fit the theming of the Spider-Man video, but in the Paper Mario one, I thought it was just a good effect because, you know, paper, crafts, and just little cute little jiggles and stuff, it made sense. So that's a real quick and easy way to add a little jiggle, is a little rotation like that.
Walk through Spidey's.
Just a cute little thing. Anyway, so that's just a cool little subtle effect. Another thing that I do all the time with my titles, and I didn't do it in this video, but a really easy way to do, let's say it didn't fade in, and I delete the default transition here of the fade in, the crossfade, delete that. Let's say instead of fading it in, I wanted it to pop, like zoom in and pop, and then kind of settle. I use that effect a lot, and it's really easy to do. I kind of have a mathematical thing in my head of what I do. It's really easy, because everything's 100% scale, because you set the actual size in your title card here. So once that's the correct size you want, it'll always be 100% in the actual project. So what I do is I hit the scale at the very start of the thing, or wherever I want it to start. I count 10 frames to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and then I hit another one, and then I do 6 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And basically, the 10th frame is where it'll be at its largest, and then 6 more frames so that it settles down into the correct size. So the final one here will stay at 100, and then I do 10% more of whatever the object is. So if it is like a picture that's really small, so I have to scale it up really big, and it's like 300 scale, I would do 330. But here it's 100, so I'll do 110. Does that make sense? 10% more. So just 10%, and then the very beginning is 0, because it starts at 0, and then it'll grow to 10% larger than it's supposed to be, and then settle into the 100. So it looks like this.
You get to basic.
Here, I'll do it back a little bit.
One being that you get to basic.
It just like pops in, and then it settles, which is a really nice effect.
One being that you get to basic.
And that's, I do that a lot. I use that with a ton of titles. I do that with pictures so that they pop in and go whoop, whoop, and the settling just gives it an extra pizzazz. If I didn't have the settling and it just went 0 to 100 and that's it would look like this, and it doesn't look as good.
One being that you get to basically.
I mean, you know, there's no settling. It just kind of like whoop, and that's it.
That you get to basically.
And it just doesn't look as clean. It just looks a little more professional, I guess, if it's like, and then it settles like it's got some movement, some animation to it. Anyway, so that's those titles. Real quickly, because this is longer than I thought this would be. This one here, so this is where I say it feels like Spider-Man. And it does the flickering effect of like a monitor, so it looks like this.
Feel like Spider-Man. The thing is, like...
So same thing, I have the text that has the... So it feels like Spider-Man, it has the texture, so again, that also has the thing where it feels like Spider-Man. Looks like the webs. And here's how I do that. It's, again, also pretty easy. It's just a combination of opacity going higher and lower, so that's the flickering is like 50% and 0, and just kind of going back and forth between that. And then here is just moving left to right. That's literally all it is. It's a combination of flickering opacity and moving the text left to right, just the actual position on screen. So here,
feel like
that, I mean, it happens real quick. So you can see there I did a little bit of, I did flickering and then really quickly into movement. So here, it's 100%. I do how many frames? 3 frames to 0, 3 frames to 100 again. So it comes back at 100. And then, sorry, it lags a little bit because Premiere just is weird. And then I think I go to 50, so 3 frames to 50, and then 3 frames to 100. So it's just like, it's having trouble staying on screen. It's flickering in and out. It's 50%, so it's not like quite 100, but it goes to 0 as well. So it just does that. I just did 100, 50, 100, and zeros in between. And so that just gives it that flickering effect. And then I go into the... left to right. So I think it's less than 3 frames. It is 1 frame. So a single frame, boom to boom, it moves to the right a little bit, and then, or no, to the left, and then to the center, and then to the right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So sorry, I'm looking at here. Middle, left, right, middle. That's all it is. And so that's just a real quick left to right. And it has to be super, super fast, like 1 frame like it is, so that it looks like a glitch. If it has movement, if it has animation in between, it won't look like a glitch. It'll look like it's moving. So it has to be super quick. The opacity thing can be some frames in between, because that's like it's appearing and disappearing. But the left to right, you want to be real quick like a glitch. And so I do that,
like Spider-Man.
And then I sort of just copy and paste it, to be honest. I copied this first bit and then pasted it right here. Actually, it almost looks like the frames are shorter in between. Let me see about that. So here it's 1, 2. Yeah, so then I did 2 frames. So I don't know why I did that, or if I did that on purpose, but it was 2 frames there. So then same thing, but I switch it up. I don't do the exact, so I guess I didn't copy and paste it. It's different. I did a 100 to 0 in 2 frames, 100 in 2 frames, 50 in 2 frames, 100. So I guess it is the same thing, but it's shorter, so it looks a little bit different.
Feel like,
but then I put a little bit of space in between the next left to right, so that it's not copy and paste. And then here I think I literally just faded it out. Actually, just faded it. I did 1 more flicker and then faded it out. but you don't want it to be cut and paste. You don't want it to be, I know I just said I cut and paste it, but you actually don't. You want it to be spaced out differently so that it looks random, so that it looks like it's actually glitching and not intended. So if it was the exact same animation every like 30 frames or something, it would look very repetitive. Like, let's say I just literally drag these over and put it like that, and then I just kind of like copy these and paste them here, and you know, copy this, paste it in the middle, like just have it look just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of fading and glitching.
Feel like
and it would just.
The thing is... Like,
oh, I forgot that I faded out on this one. Anyway, you get where I'm going with it. You don't want it to do that. You don't want it to look repetitive or look in a pattern. You want it to look random. So I did try to spread them out as best I could, where it's like, here it's really quick, like that straight into a left-right, like a lot of space of nothing, a little more flicker, but then some space again, and then another that, you know. So it's random. And then I did one here as well with this one, similar thing. But again, I tried to add more and space it out a little bit more. So I did it again here with attention to detail.
Insomniac blended into the experience.
And sometimes maybe, like here it does go back and forth, like fade left right, fade left right. Maybe you wanna switch it up. Like maybe you do 2 left rights back to back. So it's like there it is again, and then more flickers. And that would probably make it like, maybe I would do that instead to make it look more random, where anyway, you get what I'm saying. You don't want it to be very obvious what you're doing. You want it to look random. At least if you're going for that effect, right? If you're going for that glitch effect. Anyway, so that's the different titles that I do. Those are the basic effects that I do most of the time in videos. The pop-in one I do a lot. The title cards just look nice and clean. I like how they look. So that's how you do it. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed your very first Snowman editing tutorial. I'll see you on the next one. It's been fun. Next time I was thinking of different ideas that I want to talk about. So I guess, hey, if you are watching this on YouTube, which I think, like, even if I'm putting this on the website or whatever, you can probably still click on it to go to the YouTube link. Give me in the comments. Tell me, like, what else would you like to see of how I do in the editing? Like I said, maybe I'll do the Paper Mario one so you can see how I did actual animation of things on screen. There were a few other ideas. Oh, I could show you, maybe next time I'll show you how I make my end slate. So like this purple blue background thing I made from scratch, and the Patreon logo and everything, how it pops in and all that. I could show you that. So there's a bunch of ideas. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.